Okay, fresh out of the shower and into 2025. That's right, I don't want to brag too much, but every morning I do a hot plunge. I step into the tub and I let the water run over me and I think about life, and it's very cleansing and I highly recommend it. Realistically, the biggest impact of my shower this morning is that I have wet hair in this video and it'll dry as I continue to make it, so enjoy that. But I was actually thinking about kind of 2024 in the rearview mirror as a recap when I was taking a shower this morning. And I kind of laughed at something my girlfriend said in the car last night. We were talking about the year that we had had, and she said, all things considered, 2024 was not that bad. And I thought about it, and I literally were in the car, and I was like, I don't know, because, I got cancer for the third time in the last 7 years in 2024, and that does frame things a lot differently, no matter who you are, how you want to look at it, how you approach being a cancer patient or dealing with trauma. It'd be hard for a year in which I was diagnosed with cancer to be considered a good year. But I think I kind of did it. And I'm going to tell you how, and hopefully I can also use this as an opportunity to maybe be a little bit more candid about my personal life and the big picture station I find myself in nearly 7 years into being a young adult cancer patient. Because the relationship that I have with this vlog is, I like to share where I'm at in the kind of cancer journey, how my mental health is doing, the specifics about my diagnosis and the things I'm going through on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, however often I get to record. But that kind of lays the expectation that anyone who's watching knows where I'm at in this or is keeping track, and that is definitely not the case. The internet is a big, big place, and the more and more people who watch this, the less likely it is that someone who's jumping in will know the full story of what I'm dealing with. And so if I frame it like that, I think that a cancer patient or someone who is helping out a cancer patient can point to it and say, hey, this guy's in his mid-30s, he's been dealing with some shit, here's how he approaches it. Because nothing I do should be copied one-to-one. If you're trying to live with cancer and you're copying everything I do, it's a fool's errand, because I'm kind of a lunatic and we're all different. Our cases are different, our lives are different, and the way we handle things are different. But I think it is helpful to see kind of how I approach this in a big picture sense and maybe take bits and pieces and say, yeah, I like what he said about that, I like what he's done there. So hopefully today's vlog can be that. So getting back to the words of that wise woman, 2024, all things considered, it really wasn't that bad, which is crazy to say out loud. Let's even call it a net neutral, which is a huge win for a year in which I had a cancer recurrence. And the how I got here part and the how I can size up the cancer portion of it part is really important, because I don't think this is something that you could say if you were a new cancer patient. I mean, the first year that I got cancer, 2018, easily the worst year of my life, all the way into 2019. And then last year, in which I had a stage 4 recurrence, that was a really, really tough year, really challenging year physically and mentally, really scary year. And this year, it's felt a lot different despite having another recurrence. Now, to contextualize things, I had started 2024 in remission from a recurrence of stage 4 metastatic melanoma. I had found a lump in a parotid lymph node in early 2023, and by February I had this diagnosis, and I got through immunotherapy in 75 days. I made a whole video about it. It was pretty cool. It felt like I was on top of the world, because metastatic melanoma, especially stage 4 metastatic melanoma, is one of the most deadly and aggressive cancers, and anytime you can get yourself to be cancer-free, no evidence of disease, remission, whatever you want to call it, anytime you can get there, it represents a huge win. My case is likely incurable, but there's still a small window for cure, and it seems to be very treatable. I don't know why I said small window for cure. I honestly have no idea. No one has any idea. Your case is going to be one of one, and so far I've been able to get into remission 3 times. We'll get to that a little bit later, but the point is I got to a very successful area of time. I entered 2024 seemingly healthy and trending up. And again, I'm just talking about my cancer case right now and how it has progressed, kind of the roller coaster over the last 7 years, and where I was at the beginning of 2024. And maybe to zoom out a little bit more, I told you that in 2018 I was diagnosed for the first time. I had a mole on my leg that mutated. It had metastasized to a lymph node in my groin by the time we found it. I did a year of immunotherapy then. I was in remission for 4 years until the recurrence in 2023. And then by 2024, like I said, I was in remission again. Very good, very fortunate place to be. I had a couple cancer scares late in 2023. I had a lymph node in my groin that was kind of puffed up, and then one in my neck. The thing about being skinny and kind of neurotic about having all these lymph nodes, when I'm in the shower, when I'm doing my hot plunge every morning, I am feeling my lymph nodes pretty neurotically, like I said, and I wish I didn't. I wish that wasn't my life, but it's something that I do. And every time I have one, I go, holy shit, this is it, because historically speaking, when there is a lymph node inflamed in my body that I get to notice, 3 out of 5 times or something like that, it has been a cancer, either diagnosis or recurrence. So those are usually leading indicators. I'm sure there's been your lymph nodes get inflamed for a number of reasons. I'm probably being dramatic. I'm sure I've had hundreds of them, that maybe I've noticed dozens of them, and it's really, I've had 2 recurrences. So I'm kind of being dramatic here. But the point being, I had gone through some of the scares in the end of 2023 or 2024, but they were negative then. I thought that I was cruising back to hopefully another durable remission, or an actual durable remission, because 4 years itself, not durable. Anyway, once I got past the lymph node scares in late 2023, early 2024, the thing that I was dealing with most medically as it relates to my case is I was diagnosed with advanced osteoarthritis in both my hips. I was actually worried it was going to be something called avascular necrosis, which would have made me have to replace my hips. Either way, my hips were killing me. I got that figured out, that I was like, okay, if this is what I have to deal with, it was from long exposure to steroids after getting hepatitis due to immunotherapy. That's a hell of a sentence. But I thought that that's what I was going to be working through in 2024. I was like, all right, get my hips to stay alive as long as they can. They will have to be replaced eventually. That is something that I hope I get to do. But that was my focus until about April, in which the lymph node in my right groin popped up again. And like I say, when this happens, I get very, very scared. And this one all of a sudden was a lot different. After being inflamed for like a week and continuing to grow, I just knew. And by the time we got around to end of June, early July, I once again had a confirmation that it was a recurrence of stage 4 metastatic melanoma, and we stepped back into the ring. And it's funny I said step into the ring there, because I don't really like the cancer fighting terminology. It's not a fight. There's nothing, we didn't choose this, and it is something that we are fighting. But I think that people like to, dramatize the bravery and the struggle that people are electively going through. It's like everyone wants to survive. I don't know anyone who's gotten cancer and has been like, screw it, let's just roll over. And so maybe to me, I want to use the competitive language, because that's the language I speak. I'm not much of a fighter in real life anyway, but I love competing. I love sports. I love games more than anything. And a concept that I like in sports and games and competing is act like you've been there. And that means, like, if you're in your first big game, your first championship game, you might act a little bit differently. You might be nervous. If you win or lose, your emotions might get the best of you. But by the time you're in another big spot, your second championship game, your third victory, your third loss, you should be able to act a little differently. You should be able to slow things down. And in the scheme of cancer, while, it's not a game, it's not a competition, it's life. And it's shitty that, I and other people are diagnosed with cancer. But by the time I was on my third recurrence, my third cancer diagnosis, I realized that I couldn't let my emotions get the better of me. I couldn't have another year like 2018 where I just crumbled mentally. I needed to be sharper so that I could get the best treatment possible as quickly as possible, and then do the right things for my brain and my body to really get through this, because that's the hope. I want to live as long as I can with, or hopefully without, cancer, and I want to give myself the best life that I can have in that time. I also do want to acknowledge that the recurrence that I had, or have, the case that I'm dealing with right now, this year of treatment, it is a very fortunate situation to be in for someone who is having this many recurrences of stage 4 metastatic melanoma. The only spot that we found was in this lymph node in my groin that we're able to remove, and I am doing treatment and tolerating it well. I don't know what this would look like if the recurrence I had was mets all over my body, stuff that was affecting my central nervous system or my organs, and the prognostic stuff was way worse. But when I sat down with my oncologist, he said, hey, we have the tools to deal with this. Whatever treatment you do, it's likely going to be working in the short term, and long term, there's still a hope for cure. That is a fantastic position for me to be in. It allows me to be calmer. It allows me to act like this is all business. I don't know what it's going to look like. There might be a conversation one day. I really hope there isn't, but there might be a conversation where, my oncologist sits down and goes, hey, all this stuff isn't working, prepare yourself for the worst, hope for the best, but prepare yourself for the worst. I would be making a different video about my 2024 and my overall case. So I do want to acknowledge that, like, the circumstances I am in still allow me to have this kind of candor. And I actually, really respect when there are people who have far worse prognoses who are just like, yeah, fuck it, let's roll. 2024, great year. I don't have the experience for that yet. I promise you that year, for me, if it happens, will be a worse one, but that's not my reality, so I'm going to take the, good fortune where I have it. And speaking of those other people, I'm kind of talking about the way in which cancer patients and their loved ones interact with these videos. This is always a sensitive portion. I always want to preface this with, when I'm describing the mixed kind of success that I've had as a stage 4 melanoma patient, like, I consider it very successful that I'm 7 years in and I still have a chance at cure and that I keep getting to remission. When I talk about that, I know that it leaves room for people to feel a little sad about what they're going through or the way their prognosis is, because there are plenty of people dealing with much worse situations than mine, and that hurts. That sucks for me to think about. That sucks for the people in it specifically. It is the reality of the world we're in, the cancer world that we're all in. And similarly, The other factors that aren't cancer diagnosis related, like I live a very fortunate life there too. I've had, great family relationships. I have great friends. I do okay financially. I have a supporting partner. I have a good support system in general. My doctors have been very, very kind and helpful, and I know that's also not the case. So when I talk about the successes in my life and the way in which I'm dealing with cancer while having all this support, I don't want to rub it in anyone's face. If you don't have that, I try and empathize as much as possible. That's really shitty. This is such a hard thing to go through with all the help that I have. And if you're going through it without the help, that just sucks. My heart goes out to you there, so I'm sorry if that's the case. But I do also want people to hear from someone who is able to get through this. I think the goal, down the line is for everyone to be able to get through cancer and have the agency to make their life as good as it can be. And so I don't want people who are scared and in a position where they want to get back to a good life to feel like they can't, because I promise you can. I've done it multiple times, and my hope is to continue doing it. So that's why I talk about the good things in life as well. So without going on for too long or bragging too much, because I love me some me, I could talk about myself for hours. In fact, I have a vlog that's just about myself. And without being too self-promoting, I think I just want to talk about some of the big picture life stuff I was able to accomplish, or even some of the minutia that I think is really important in how this year has gone and how this has been, all things considered, a pretty good year. So yeah, some of the things in 2024 that have made me very proud and or felt like this year was pretty good and I'm going in the right direction. In early 2024, I bought a house. My girlfriend and I closed in April of 2024, and full disclosure, I didn't know about the recurrence then. I was in remission. I'm not sure we would have done that had I been in active treatment or known this was coming, but life does come at you fast, as they say. On top of that, I did deal with these arthritic hips. I'm not saying they're perfect, but I've put a lot of work into mobility and all of the, diet and nutrition I can to make them feel a little better. And as a result, it's allowed me to play some of the best basketball that I've had in my 30s. And for those of you who don't know, basketball, and at this point in time, pickup basketball, is just as important as anything to me. It's kind of it's my outlet for, staying in shape as well as keeping my mental health intact, and how I do in basketball is strangely important to me, and I'm playing very well this year, and that means a lot. On top of getting a house and playing well in basketball, the treatment stuff is important. I mentioned that earlier, but just the way that has gone, the way I approached it, and the way I have the right team behind me from an oncological sense, that's been really, really important for my mental health. I've been less stressed because that I know they have my back. That part's good. I kind of firmed that up, let's say. On top of that, I mentioned that I have a business that I run, and then I started another one in the sense that it's a nonprofit, and I had to scale back in order to do that. But the first half of the year, I had a lot of financial success. It allowed me to, pick and choose which clients I wanted to retain when I did kind of dial it back in the last half of this year. And that has been very gratifying to know that I kind of have allowed myself to control my destiny, because like I said, there are a lot of bad things involved in a cancer diagnosis, and being hyper stressed about your job situation is not one that I want to go through again. I've done that, and I don't want to put myself through that again. So I did a good job of safeguarding that. I traveled a lot in 2024, both internationally and domestically, and this is actually important because travel anxiety has been something that has plagued me for the last 7 years, which I hadn't had any anxiety until I was diagnosed with cancer. And one of the weirdest ones was that each time I left San Luis Obispo, the city I live in, I would get very nervous about it. I think because my goal every time I'm in cancer treatment is to create this very focused cocoon, just stay in my room, get through treatment, move on to next year. And I don't know if that's realistic or not. And as I've gotten, more and more used to being a cancer patient and understanding that there's life to live inside the years that you're dealing with treatment, I've had to force myself to approach traveling in a healthier way, because every time I went on a trip, I would have panic attacks or, mini panic attacks, and it would just not be something I was looking forward to. And in 2024, I was really successful at enjoying the traveling I was doing. And I think that's healthy. That's how traveling and vacation and adventure and finding out more about yourself through other experiences should be. And speaking of finding out more about yourself or growing, I think the thing that I'm most proud of in 2024 is that I've found a way to be more present in spite of dealing with this ongoing diagnosis and being in treatment. Because the other 2 times that I've gone through treatment, like I said, I've completely removed those sections of time from what I view as myself, that's not how it works. That's not what actually has happened. I've been a cancer patient this whole time, and I don't think it's great to try and partition that off and say, this isn't my life, this is some third person experience that I'm going through. It's just mentally unhealthy, and I've done it too much. And this year I did a much better job of saying, okay, I'm dealing with a known entity at this point in time, even though it has, these wide variables that are scary to me. But I can't just shut down every time I do this. I can't stop growing. I can't stop nurturing myself every time I get cancer. And so I focused a lot more on being the person that I am, like through the diagnosis and through the treatment, and also interacting with the people that I love, my family and my friends, and actually talking with a lot more cancer patients and helping them out during this year, because I think that's my favorite thing in life is people and friendship. And I've done a much better job of being a good friend this year and being available, because I have gone missing for long stretches of times during other diagnoses, and that doesn't make me feel good. And I think that being just an available person and growing, I've done a lot of projects that I'm proud of, and that's been a good thing in 2024. And there are plenty of other things I'm sure I could list. The point of this is not to pick out individual accomplishments and say, hey, look at what I did. I mean, there are some big things in there that I listed that I liked, but ultimately the goal, the takeaway was to say, all things considered, 2024 was a pretty good year. And my hope is that if you're watching this video still, which thank you for doing so, I know I got a little rambly there a second ago, but if you're still watching, the hope is that you can see this and say, yeah, there's room for me or someone I care about who has cancer to have a good year, to have good years in the future. Because when we do these kind of retrospectives for our year in the shower at the end of 2024 into 2025, I think it's always with the focus on the future, which would be next year. I hope that next year is an even better year. I think everyone always wants to have a better year than the year before, because that would be a pretty great track record to have. So, all things considered, I hope 2025 is a lot better than 2024, but we're going to have to find out. Either way, I appreciate you watching this. It means a lot to me that you're still here doing that, and it helps me grow this channel, so thank you for that. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.